Hello, welcome to the April webinar. My name is Michael Kramer and I am your presenter today. I am the calibration/inspection program manager at PJLA. And today we are going to be presenting on section 7.2 of 17025, which is the section on selection, verification, and validation of methods. As always, this webinar is being recorded. All of our PJLA webinar recordings and slides are available for download from the past webinars section on our website. Currently, everyone is muted. I cannot hear you, but I certainly hope everybody can hear me. However, feel free to utilize the question tab, and they will be answered at the end of the session. Please keep questions pertaining to today's topic, which is, once again, section 7.2, selection, verification, and validation of methods. So in a nutshell, the laboratory, of course, is required to use appropriate methods and procedures for activities and, when necessary, for the evaluation of the measurement uncertainty, as well as statistical techniques for the analysis of data. Methods, procedures, and supporting documentation need to be kept up to date and made available to all personnel. In addition, ISO 17025-2017 mandates that the laboratory stays up to date with methods as appropriate, and when the customers do not specify a method, the laboratory chooses the best and latest valid version. The laboratory must communicate what methods they are using with the customers. So we'll look at the individual requirements here, and you'll see where everything that basically is dissertated here are captured in these requirements. So one thing I want to start out with is some definitions. We see the term verification, we see the term validation. So as specified in 17025 in the definitions section, we have the definitions. Verification is defined as the provision of objective evidence that a given item fulfills specific requirements. Standard then gives us three examples. Confirmation, excuse me, that a given reference material as claimed is homogeneous for the quantity, value, and measurement procedure concerned, down to a measurement proportion having a mass of 10 milligrams. Example 2, confirmation that performance properties or legal requirements of a measuring system are achieved. And example 3, confirmation that a target measurement uncertainty can be met. So if you are looking to expand your scope, perhaps into another discipline, which is not covered under your scope, and you'll see under 7215, if you adopted a nationally recognized procedure, the organization would need to verify that they can achieve the required performance. You'll also see that records are required there. Going on the other term here of validation. Validation is a verification where the specified requirements are adequate for intended use. An example would be a measured procedure ordinary used for the measurement of mass concentration of nitrogen in water may be validated also for measurement of mass concentration of nitrogen in human serum. So under validation, this covers unconventional techniques as well as conventional and laboratory developed techniques. The method must undergo comprehensive validation to satisfy that a given application requirements. If modifications are made to the method that has been verified, it is essential to comprehend their impact by performing a validation test once again. All right, now looking at the requirements, very first clause under section 7.2. The laboratory shall use appropriate methods and procedures for all laboratory activities and, where appropriate, for the evaluation of the measurement uncertainty, as well as statistical techniques for the analysis of data. A note, methods as used in this document, 17025, can be considered synonymous with the term measurement procedure as defined in ISO Guide 99. So, of course, being assessed to 17025 under section 7.2, you would be assessed that you are, of course, using appropriate methods, whether they come from a nationally recognized method such as like ASTM or ISO type methods, or if you developed your own method. These are things that are assessed and assured that they are appropriate for the testing and calibration activities under your scope of accreditation. 7212, all methods, procedures, and supporting documentation, such as instructions, standards, manuals, and reference data relevant to the laboratory activity, shall be kept up to date and shall be made readily available to personnel. So this could be, of course, the method would have to be up to date. An example of associated documentation needed to perform a procedure could perhaps be the tolerance reference in a compliance statement. I'm sure that is up to date and current. Also right here, shall be made readily available to personnel. So the folks that are actually doing the testing and calibration, they should have access to the procedure and all associated documentation, or perhaps referenced in the procedure. This is also important for those of you all that are doing calibration offsite, calibration or testing on site at the customer's location. This applies to those personnel as well, that they should have access to the procedure regarding the test method or calibration method, which they will be performing. Under 7213, yes, we have to ensure we have the latest and the greatest. The laboratory shall ensure that it uses the latest valid version of a method unless it is not appropriate or possible to do so. When necessary, the application of the method shall be supplemented with additional details to ensure consistent operations. As noted here, international, regional, or national standards or other recognized specifications that contain sufficient and concise information on how to perform laboratory activities do not need to be supplemented or rewritten as internal procedures. If these are written in a way that they can be used by the operating personnel in a laboratory, it can be necessary to provide additional documentation for optional steps in the method or additional detail. So basically what's that saying is you can adopt a method, ASTM E898, for example. That's a quite detailed method. You can adopt that as your procedure. You don't have to rewrite it or write it internally. However, you may elect to write a method based on the nationally recognized method, an internal SOP that is easier for your individuals to utilize when performing laboratory activities. Perhaps the national or international method that you are basing your procedure on, all the documentation or dissertation that is specified, test method or calibration methods within it does not apply to you. You can slim it down. So either or, you can adopt the method as whole, or you can write an internal SOP for your technicians. One thing here, right off, of course, you have to use the latest version. So under 892, it's a good time to, if you to look at the method, if it is an external document, and ensure that, hey, it's not been updated and you're still operating off the latest revision. under 892 during the management review. That's something that you may very well want to look at under 892C, at least on an annual basis if you're performing your management review annually. 7214, when the customer does not specify the method to be used, the laboratory shall select an appropriate method and inform the customer of the method chosen. Methods published either in international, regional, or national standards by a reputable technical organization or in relevant scientific texts or journals, or as specified by the manufacturer of the equipment, are recommended. Laboratory developed or modified, methods can be used. So customers are coming to you, particularly if you're a 17025 accredited facility. You come under an accreditation under, say, Perry Johnson, who is an ILAC signatory. Could be utilized your services. Knowing that you are accredited, you have been assessed, so therefore, that's one of the advantages of going to an accredited facility, in that that's been assessed, and the customers or clients are looking at you folks as the expert and assuming that you will select the appropriate method to fulfill their needs. The laboratory shall verify that it can properly perform methods before introducing them, and by ensuring that it can achieve the required performance. Records of the verification shall be retained. If the method is revised by the issuing body, verification shall be repeated to the extent necessary. So once again, standard methods and published procedures are considered to be sufficiently validated. That means that the method procedure has been proven to produce the stated measurement results when the procedure is properly followed. However, every laboratory has different equipment, competencies, and other factors that will determine what capabilities the laboratory can maintain. Hence, if you have adopted a procedure, published procedure, which has been validated, you still have to verify that you can achieve the intended results, and have to maintain records of this verification. This is captured under 7215. So we have to maintain records. So some techniques which can be used to determine of the performance of a method can be one or a combination of the following. This is not all encompassing. Utilization of calibration using reference standard or reference material where you already have a known value. Comparison of results achieved by other methods. Perhaps an interlaboratory comparison. Do the testing, send it off to another organization that are performing the same test. Symptomatic assessments of factors influencing the results. It could be things like volume dispensed or temperature or humidity fluctuations. And assessment of uncertainty of the results based on scientific understanding of the theoretical principles of the methods and practical experiences. 7216. When method development is required, this shall be a planned activity and shall be assigned to competent personnel equipped with adequate resources. As method development proceeds, periodic reviews shall be carried out to confirm that the needs of the customers are still being fulfilled. Any modification to the laboratory plan, to the development plan shall be approved and authorized. So under there is kind of a head scratcher. When method development is required, this could be associated with perhaps product development and the development of new calibration or test methods to support the product. 7217, of course, you're expected to follow the method. If there's any deviation from the method for all laboratory activities, shall occur only if the deviation has been documented, technically justified, authorized, and last but not least, it has to be accepted by the customer. All right, going to switch gears here and look at validation. Validation of methods. So the laboratory shall validate non-standard methods, laboratory developed method, and standard methods used outside their intended scope or otherwise modified. The validation shall be as extensive as is necessary to meet the needs of the given application or field of application. So these are methods that have not been predetermined to already have been validated, where you just have to verify the methods, which is what we were going over in the previous section. These are based on non-standard methods, lab developed methods, and if you use a method that is recognized and use it outside of its intended scope, these are things that would need to be validated. Validation can include procedures for sampling, handling, and transportation of test and calibration items. And standard does give you some additional information for validation. The techniques used for the method validation can be one or a combination of the following: calibration or evaluation of bias and precision using reference standards and reference materials. Again, symptomatic assessments of factors influencing the results: temperature, humidity, volume dispensed, for example. Testing methods robustness through variation of controlled parameters such as incubator temperature, volume dispensed. Comparison of results achieved with other validated methods. Again, interlaboratory comparison and evaluation of the measurement uncertainty of the results based on an understanding of the theoretical principles and methods of the practical experiences of the performances of the test method. Once a method, if you have validated a method, if something changes, when changes are made to the validated method, the influence of such changes shall be determined that where they are found to affect the original validation, a new method validation shall be performed. 7223, the performance characteristics of validated methods as assessed for the intended use shall be relevant to the customer needs and consistent with the specified requirements. Additional note, performance characteristics can influence but are not limited to measurement range, accuracy, measurement uncertainty of the results, limit of detection, limit of quantification, selection of the method, linearity, repeatability, or reproducibility, robustness against external influences, or cross-sensitivity against interference from the matrix of the sample, test object, and bias. These are things that can be considered in the validation of a method. They can include, a can is not a requirement, that is a permission. So if you do have to validate a method, as a laboratory, it's an in-house developed method, for example, you have to maintain records. Verification just said you had to maintain records. Under validation, it's specific as to what records would need to be maintained. And that would include A, the validation procedure used, B, the specification of the requirement, C, determination of the performance characteristics of the methods, D, hey, the results that the validation outputted. And last but not least, what is the consensus? A statement on the validity of the method detailing its fitness for the intended use. All right. So that's going to bring us to the end of the requirements under Section 7.2. So as I stated at the beginning, you have the opportunity to ask some questions here. Should have a tab presented to you for questions. Feel free to type in there, and I will do my best to answer them. Currently, I don't have any. I'll give it a few moments here. I have one question, and if a customer standard such as a OEM for paint testing is their standard considered a method? One of the references, we specified nationally international methods. One of them are also a manufacturer method. So if that is considered a manufacturer method where it details the steps that you need to do to perform this paint testing, then I would say that would be an appropriate method. Could you please repeat what is the verification parameter you had in earlier slides? A verification parameter would be a range that you set that you are expected to meet. Go back and look at the particular slide if I'm thinking what you're referring to there. So, for example, if you are checking the uncertainty against a known reference value or another test, perhaps an e-normal analysis would be the verification parameter, where you're looking for the value and the degree of uncertainty to overlap with each other. Hope I'm answering your question there and I'm referencing the correct slides. But anytime you mention a parameter, that is a sort of a range where you expect your target to hit, where you're through your verification or your validation. All right, give it a few more minutes here. Appreciate everybody logging in this morning or this afternoon, wherever you happen to be. Whoop. Don't know what happened there. Didn't mean that for it to happen. I totally lost my place there. If we would like to add a new method to our accreditation and have passed 2 proficiency tests for such, what else do we need to do to add this to our accreditation? Well, you would have certainly met the requirement for verification or validation if you already taken the initiative and performed a proficiency test, and hopefully they were successful. All the other requirements that you would be expected to meet would be the requirements in the standard, such as traceability, competence of personnel, your environmental criteria. These are things that are really not associated with the methods, but if you have a if you're trying to verify or validate the method, then proficiency tests would certainly be a record which would be acceptable. All right. Client wants a calibration performed by a non-validated method. What is the best document the client can request? It's kind of a broad, encompassing question. And if you're a calibration lab, if you're accredited, if you feel it's a not an appropriate method, I would not perform the calibration and advise your customer as to why. If it's a non-validated method and it's not under your scope of accreditation, you can perform it. However, I cannot claim it as a calibration or test performed under your scope of accreditation. Is there a standard to use if environmental conditions requirements are not specified in the methods? Well, if there's any environmental conditions that can affect the results of your test or calibration, then it should be included in the method. That's a requirement under actually reporting and also in facilities and environmental conditions. There is no set standard to cover environmental conditions for every calibration or testing under the sun. There is no specific method I can direct you to. However, if there is something such as mostly a temperature or humidity that a test or calibration needs to be performed, that should be documented within the method or somewhere within your quality management system. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and look to the next webinar that I'll be doing, which, as you can see, is a few weeks away, May 13th, which is going to look at the use of accreditation symbols and references to accreditation. Same time, same station. It'll be Thursday, May 18th. Hopefully you can attend. So thank you once again and look forward to seeing everyone in May.